start?
Anytime.
All right. Good afternoon to everyone. And we are Team 10. And my name is Mohamed Aroglu. My colleagues are. Okay. Today we are going to introduce you Aid for Trade is not the best way to increase aid effectiveness. And first, we gotta look the agenda first. It says what is Aid for Trade, and quick facts about Aid for Trade, and why Aid for Trade is not effective, and then conclusion. And let me first define what is Aid for Trade. Aid for Trade aims to help developing countries, least developed countries, develop the trade-related skills and infrastructure that is needed to implement and benefit from World Trade Organization agreements and to expand their trade. So Aid for Trade classified into 6 categories. They are trade policy regulations, trade development, and trade-related infrastructure, building productive capacity, trade-related adjustment, and other trade-related needs. Today, the total volume of aid for trade is estimated by the OECD to be about $25 to $30 billion annually. So, giving the example of the United States, since 2004, they paid $12.3 billion to Africa. For European Union is also increased. It is aid for trade flows, $2.3 billion, like paying annually by 2010. If you look at the Japan paid $10 billion over the 3 years. And if you look at, although like I have mentioned 6 categories of aid for trade, there are 3 of them are really important and addressing the issue very well. If you look at for the Africa's graph, so aid for trade for economic infrastructure is growing steadily. This is since 2002 to 2005 until 2009. If you look at building productive capacity are coming right behind the economic infrastructure. So trade policy and regulations and trade-related adjustments are coming right behind them. And now, why aid for trade is not effective? There are a couple of reasons. Economic partnership agreements, global trade needs structural change, Dutch disease, and internal capacity. And now Himi will tell you about economic partnership agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed. Hi, everyone. Let me ask you a question. Do you think aid for trade is free? The answer is no. In order to get aid for trade, ACP countries ACP countries are pushed by the European Union to sign economic partnership agreements, or EPAs. What are the EPAs? The EPAs are new trading arrangements that lower tariffs between European Union and ACP countries, and also end the unilateral trade preferences enjoyed by the ACP countries, which means that ACP countries will have to open their markets to the European imports. There are some problems with the EPAs. The first problem is that EPAs will expose ACP countries to devastating European Union competition. ACP producers will struggle to compete with European imports in areas where they already compete. The second problem is that ACP countries will face substantial adjustment costs. This will require significant funds, but these countries doesn't have those funds. So it will be impossible for them to invest in production and social measures. Another problem is the loss of government revenues. Many ACP countries rely on import taxes for their fiscal income. If we eliminate the tariffs, these countries will lose their capacity of spending. And there are another external implication of other EU policies. For access to European markets has become more difficult due to side roles and other non-trade barriers, like, for example, sanitary measures. And let me show you something. In this graph, we see the evolution of the ACP countries' net exports. In the year 2007, when these APAs started, like when the ACP started to sign these economic partnership agreements, we can see how the exports went down. This is because the imports went up and the export went down, which means that the EPS has a negative effect on these countries, because now European products are cheaper than before. And now my colleague Chenyu will explain a little bit more about effectiveness.
Okay, thanks, Jaime. Jaime just now talked about what developed countries they want to pocket from our poor brothers. But what are their responsibilities in multilateral trade? Aid for trade cannot be the answer. In fact, aid for trade has been no more than a less disappointing result of the Doha Round. Started in 2001, Doha Round aimed at helping poor brothers by lowering trade barriers, especially subsidies from the wealthy countries. Yes, but in 2005, after 4 years really slow progress, our big brothers, they finally came up with one significant alternative, aid for trade. However, aid for trade still failed to address the supply side constraints as it was supposed to. As shown in our graph, the orange line is the average export cost of all recipient countries of aid for trade. Actually, for the past 5 years, it has been rising. Neither are the recipient countries benefiting financially from aid for trade. With total annual budget for aid for trade only a little bit more than United States export subsidy, with 40% of total budget pocketed by international consulting firms, we can never expect it to be effective. Rather, we expect our rich countries to take the initiative to promote trade liberalization by dismantling duties, getting rid of different forms of subsidies and arbitrary standards. A simple math tells us that the United States is one country's 1 year domestic subsidy support are 3 times the annual total budget for aid for trade, not even to mention its great implicit influence over global agricultural prices. Thanks. And now my colleague Ashraf is going to talk more about the drawbacks of aid inflows.
Thank you, Changyu. And now the Dutch disease problem. So we believe that aid for trade is not effective for many reasons, and one of these reasons is the Dutch disease. So what do we mean by the Dutch disease? We all know that the rich donors, including the US and the EU, donate or give these grants or loans as the form of their local currencies. So they give the African or ACP countries dollars, euros, and other currencies that cannot be used in Africa. Like you can't go to Africa and to the market and pay with dollars or euros. So you have to convert it. As a result, when you convert these currencies, the demand of the local currency increases. Now, after the demand of the local currency increases, the currency experiences appreciation, and this leads or makes our exports, the African exports, in the international market to be way more expensive than they have been before. So that's why we say here African exports are more expensive in the international market, and this leads the trading goods sector to become uncompetitive. So this is here a better illustration of the competitiveness equation, and it's equal to the exchange rate times the prices in the US divided by the prices of in African countries. And when the exchange rate appreciates, or when the demand increases, we said that the currency appreciates, and that's why the top number goes down and competitiveness decreases. So there are a lot of side effects for competitiveness when it goes down, and the Dutch disease, and one of these side effects are the increase in the inflation rate. It will harm the non-commodity exports, and it will affect the production, because if we are producing more and we cannot export, then we cannot then produce less. This will lead to higher unemployment, less production, and it will harm the overall economic activity. And now Nancy will speak about the other social and political issues. Thank you.
Yes. Do you think aid for trade is more important than aid for food, aid for education, or aid for health to increase aid effectiveness? We don't think so, because hungry people, unhealthy people will not want to work, and the people who are not highly educated cannot create aid value. From this table, we can find that African countries' life standard is still under the global level. And does it mean that the EU countries will support more aid for ACP countries? The answer is not, because the EU countries now are facing economic slowdown, and the EU officials admitted that they will not increase the overall amount of the development assistance. So, which means that the aid for trade will be financed at the expense of other forms of development assistance. And from this table, we can find that the proportion of aid for education is declining in recent years. And we think that this sector remains very important for the poor people. Because from the next slide, there are two graphs which tell us something about the correlation between the GDP performance and the tertiary education rate, which means that the ACP countries, for ACP countries, the best way to create value is to increase their tertiary education rate. But the premise of leveraging highly educated people is to provide effective institutional and policy framework in a stable and uncorrupted environment. Therefore, not only aid for education is important, but the internal effort to create value is also important to increase aid effectiveness. Thank you.